Hello again. This is JD Mounts, and this is JD's NASCAR and Sports Podcast, and we're back for the third episode. I want to be recapping Darlington, a little bit of Xfinity, but mostly Cup, and then go into the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. I wanted to start off by saying that, once again, I just want to thank everybody for the support, the likes, the listens, the subscriptions that really has helped me, and I'm glad the podcast is growing, and I hope it continues to grow. But I just want to say thank you for everybody that's listened to the first two episodes, and hopefully I keep giving you a product that you all will continue to listen to and don't bore you to death. Hopefully it's a little entertaining and you'll continue to listen, so thank you. I'm going to start off with like a little bit of a controversial opinion, if you will. The Xfinity race on Saturday was the best race of the weekend, in my opinion. You had a last lap battle for the win, and the cars slipping and sliding around actually looked hard to drive. So I think that, the Xfinity race took home the best race of the weekend. We don't really talk too much Xfinity on here, but I want to give a shout out to Kyle Larson and John Hunter Nemechek for battle, and that was one of the best Xfinity battles I've seen since last year at Darlington, when you had Sheldon Krieg, Noah Gragson, and Kyle Larson going at it for the Xfinity win last year. So Darlington's just an awesome track. And then you throw in these Xfinity cars that, kind of drive like really loose, and you get an old, worn-out track like Darlington, it's going to be good racing. And you see that in every old, worn-out track we visit, and this weekend was no different. So shout out to Kyle Larson. I thought he was going to sweep the weekend, but as you all know, Ross Chastain had other plans, and we'll get to that. But the Xfinity race was solid the whole day, and it was awesome to see that battle on the last lap, and also why anytime Xfinity Series goes to Darlington, it's a must-watch, and that was true again this weekend. I'm moving on to Sunday now, and if you watched the pre-race, you saw that NASCAR did a great job, I thought, just my opinion, of honoring the 75 best drivers of the sport over the last 75 years, and just the driver intros. They had all of them on a stage to get receptions, and they've been running packages of showing highlights of all 75 of them all week long, and I really thought that was awesome to see. And come on, Darlington crowd, you gotta cheer for people. You're honoring these 75 greatest drivers, so it doesn't matter what they do on the track now. When you get up there and boo, I heard Denny get booed still. You're honoring these guys, and Kyle Busch got some boos also, Joey Logano, which I get. I mean, if you don't like a driver, that's your opinion, but these guys are all awesome, the 75 best. So I think, in my opinion, a little disrespectful there. I think you got to cheer them on, no matter who they are. You're seeing greatness there, and they honored them very well. I thought it'll be pretty cool to see, in the next 25 years who's driving now that will join that list. There was quite a few that was on there this year, such as Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick. Those guys are all legends in the sport, and it was awesome to see them get the reception that most people gave. I heard some boos, but also it was nice to see Kurt Busch and Carl Edwards back at the track. We talked about last week how Carl Edwards was coming back, and you could really tell that he missed it. That's what a lot of people are talking about. Hopefully see him back soon in NASCAR in some capacity. I don't know if it'll happen, but you can tell he's still got that itch to compete. I don't know if it's necessarily driving, but even in the booth, I thought he did a great job. I thought all the guests did a great job, but especially Carl, breaking down everything that was happening. And you could tell Clint and Mike Joy enjoyed to have him back there talking with them as well about the race and other things. So just wanted to shout out NASCAR for the ceremony they put together for those drivers before we dig into the actual race and what happened on the track. Now, at the beginning of this race, the first stage especially, I was worried. I was worried we were going to have a snooze fest. But, you know, you had Martin Truex Jr. lead almost every single lap of the first stage and win it pretty convincingly. Then I have wrote down in my notes that at the beginning of the race, Toyota was really shocking to me. I mean, they were really good at Kansas, but Bubba Wallace ran up front a lot there in Darlington. I think he ended up getting a top 5. And then, of course, Martin Truex won the stage. Denny really struggled all day long. That was the only Toyota, that really had nothing all day. And he felt he had a little damage after he hit the wall at the very beginning of the race. He hit it pretty hard. And his car just wasn't very good all race long. But the Toyotas in general, other than Denny, were good all day long. And that was really, really encouraging to see if you're a Toyota fan. But as I said earlier, the first stage, pretty much just Martin Truex Jr. domination, but how things changed. You had Ross Chastain enter the mix right before the end of the second stage. That was something that nobody had been able to do all day long, was compete with Martin. And Ross, found something on that long run there before the end of stage 2 and ended up taking the lead from Martin. Well, then Martin went to fight back and ends up getting into Ross, putting him up the track into the wall, and then Martin is the one who spins. So that was interesting to see. They're coming to the end of stage 2. They both wanted that stage win really badly, and Ross Chastain was the one who got it. Other than that spin by Martin there right at the end of stage 2, that race so far up to that point showed us why Kansas was such an amazing race last week. You had nonstop action. The first second, I mean, they were racing each other 4 laps into the race, when Reddick accidentally got into Larson and spun him last week in Kansas. But I just wanted to, say that Kansas is just an amazing track. And that's why I made such a big deal of how great the racing was, because up to this point, at the end of the second stage in Darlington, it wasn't a very good race. But, as we all know, things did change, luckily. But I just wanted to take another minute to recognize Kansas and how good that was. Also, before the end of the second stage, Kyle Larson had pit problems. That is not something that normally happens. His pit crew is normally on it, and they were on it all day long after that, of course, and he was up front by the end, but pit problems early. And you saw that continue as at the end of the second stage, Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has really jumped out to me because he was running second or third. Seemed to think that he had the best long-run car. It was either him or Larson. And he had finally worked his way back up to the front there and had a really bad pit stop. I think the jack got caught under the car. They couldn't lift the car, and costed him, I want to say 10 to 12 spots. He went back out of the top 10 and had a long road back, and never really made it to be in contention again after that. So pit road woes for Kyle Busch continue. It was a bad break because, like I said, I think he had the best long-run car, and I think he would have been in contention there at the end. I also wanted to shout out a couple guys that had really good runs. First, Ricky Stenhouse. I know he won the Daytona 500 earlier this year, but he ran top 10, top 15 all day long till he had a single-car spin. That was a really good run for him, and I thought Ryan Newman did a pretty good job in that Rick Ware Racing 51 car during his return. As well as anybody else has in that car, to be honest with you. That was nice to see. I know he ended up wrecking at the end and causing one of the restarts, but respectable run for him. And Harrison Burton finally gets some good luck and almost wheeled it to a top 5, ended up finishing 6th, but he has had one of the worst luck years. have good runs, and then something happens. And this week was finally able to finish it off. I feel like that team's going in the right direction, and I heard his post-race interview, and he does too. So that's good to know. A young kid who's, I think, starting to kind of find his way there with Wood Brothers, and awesome to see his sixth place finish. That was good for that team, and I hope he can continue to build on it. Pretty uneventful, race up until the last 15 to go. And then Ryan Newman spun to bring out the caution. And you had a big wreck right with 15 to go there. I'll be honest, I love Martin Truex Jr. and what he's done for the sport, and most of the time how he drives. But he made the same mistake twice here at Darlington this week. I don't know what he was thinking with this restart. Pretty much just drove right up into Joey Logano and ended up getting him and Logano both into the wall among a couple others. And that was really strange to see, to be honest with you. Martin's a guy that usually don't make those kind of mistakes, but to see him make two in the same race doing the exact same thing, just sending it a little too hard there and ended up ruining his day the second time. So he had a good car too. Obviously, he got on the pole, kept the lead for a long time during this race. So, he had the car to get up there and compete, and he just pushed, I think overly pushed, to be honest with you, and ended up taking himself out, and you could tell he was frustrated, but just overdid it. So I hated to see him and Logano's days pretty much both end there, and hopefully he can bounce back this week at North Wilkesboro and on to Charlotte and, any other race. I think Martin will be competitive for the rest of the year. I could even see him scooting out another win, so we'll see. That was just really strange to see. Martin usually doesn't make that kind of mistakes, so hopefully he can correct it and move on. Speaking of mistakes, and I know this is going to shock no one, and you all, if you watched the race, you already know this, but if you didn't, we had another bonehead move. This time on the last restart, you had the guy who's brought a lot of attention to this sport lately. Some would argue positive way, some would argue negative. I honestly say, and you all know my opinions, I'm sick of it. And that's Ross Chastain. This week was honestly the worst one of his moves I've ever seen in my life. And that's coming from a Denny Hamlin fan. And Denny had nothing to do with this one. Just completely. I mean, nobody was getting out of the mess that he created when he gassed it up and full sent it into turn one there. Right onto Kyle Larson. Put Larson in the wall. Ended up turning Ross. I mean, the whole field knew it was coming. You saw people lay back because they knew exactly what was going to happen. And it's a shame because I think Larson, was in prime position to win. Could have went 2 for 2 on my predictions here on JD's NASCAR and Sports podcast if it had not been for Chastain ruining that and ruining Larson's day. But at least this time I will say he didn't get out of it unscathed. That's the first time that has happened. Usually with Denny and with Noah, with Chase Elliott, he's got out of these things and nothing's happened to him. Well, finally, it is about time that he paid for his actions and he got a DNF. So that was the only good thing to come out of this. Larson was so mad after the race, he didn't even have a comment. And I think, the more and more this continues to happen, the more and more I've got to encourage the garage to do the same thing to this guy that he's doing to you all. Or it's going to continue to happen, and I don't know if anybody will step up and do that. I definitely see Larson racing him a lot harder than he has in the past. And putting him in positions to wreck himself if Larson doesn't wreck him. But that restart at Darlington there was completely uncalled for. Just race it out, man. But he couldn't do that. I know they had squeezed each other all day long. I know that. But he gets on the radio and asks Larson, if they're even, and then goes and plows into the corner, knocks both of them out the race. And I just think that's not the right way to go about it. I would have enjoyed to see those two battle it out, to be honest with you, without wrecking each other. And for the people that were going after Denny Hamlin last week for this, this is 100 times what happened at Kansas. And if you can't see that, I really don't know what to say to you. It's just who it is, I guess. But really, honestly, left a bad taste in my mouth. And I know I saw Ross do an interview on Pat McAfee. He's going on all these big shows, so he's getting the sport recognition. And that's one good thing about it. But what left a bad taste in my mouth is just how it ended, how that race ended. You got the two best cars up front, just race, but it's impossible for him to do, I guess. There was no excuses for this one. I saw, Justin Marks, his team owner, has been behind him 100%. And saw comments today that, he's got things to work on, meaning that he's telling Ross that, that was unacceptable, pretty much. Owners, they want to make money. And to make money, they got to win races, and they've got the cars to do it at Trackhouse. So, you go from definitely a top 5 run, top 3 run, even if you lose the battle to Larson, if you just race it out clean, to a DNF. It's a big difference in the pay window, I would assume. And I'm sure Justin Marks didn't like that too well. So, when your owner is telling you that you got things to dial back on, I would assume that he's going to be doing that. And also, I wanted to address the Rick Hendrick calling him out. And Cliff Daniels on the radio telling Chevrolet that that's 3 races that he's costed the Chevrolets in general. They're all in the Chevrolet camp, and they've got to find a way to get along. And you don't get along with somebody who just runs you into the wall with 2 to go and gives you no chance to win the race. So that's another relationship that Ross is going to have to repair. Rick Hendrick said, they're getting tired of it over there. And I've been on here every week saying that it might be good for the sport, what the sport needs, but, at the same time, I'm sick of it, to be honest with you. And I hope that Ross can get it figured out and, just race hard. You don't have to take people out to be good in this sport, in my opinion. You've got the car to do it. You've got the sponsors backing you. Just go out there and race and see what happens. And hopefully he'll take that advice and not make any more enemies, because, guys are getting tired of it. And if he doesn't back off and doesn't quit, I hope somebody does the same thing to him. And it's my thoughts on this current incident. And one thing I will credit Ross for is at least he didn't get out of the car and say, "I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm in over my head driving these cars that are so fast. I've never had a good ride." At least, he owned up to it. He said he wanted to squeeze him and push him up the track, but he ended up wrecking himself in the process. So I'm glad we didn't have to sit through another "I'm sorry," not truthful interview after the race. That was the only good thing out of it. The guys bringing the sport into a national spotlight, and that's the one good thing I will say. So now on to how the race should have been finished and was finished. You had Kevin Harvick and William Byron in the front row restarting, and Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, those guys all had damage from the previous wreck. So, they weren't really going to be a competitor. And you saw Harvick kind of lay over and let Byron have it. He was the best car remaining that didn't have damage. And that was really awesome to see how it should be done, in my opinion. Harvick was a class act on that restart, and you got to give credit for that. So, Willie B brings home a Darlington win. And I said my prediction last week was Hendrick was going to be the team to beat. And, they had two of the top three, I think. I think Elliott ended up coming in third, so you had Willie B winning. And, of course, Larson was there until he got taken out by Chastain. Only one that really shocked me was Josh Berry. I have no clue what happened. I know he hit the wall kind of early in the race, and that might have just impacted his car a lot, but he ended up finishing several laps down back in the 30s, so that was a disappointing run for Josh. But with North Wilkesboro coming up, he'll probably run better there, I would assume. But I thought Hendrick would be the team to beat, and I just picked the wrong driver, it looks like. But congrats to Willie B for that win, and he went out and he deserved the win, with everyone around him damaged. And that was good to see a clean restart, clean finish, and on to North Wilkesboro we go for the All-Star race. I wanted to start off talking about North Wilkesboro just by saying shout out to NASCAR and shout out to Dale Jr. for revamping this track and being able to hold a NASCAR event there. They're having the Cars Tour races there and everything also this week. But to have a NASCAR event there, and they just announced it probably 6 to 8 months ago, and to have the turnaround, it's just awesome to see. It's going to be nostalgic for everybody that was a fan back in the 80s and 90s, and this will be my first time ever seeing a race there on TV, so it'll be awesome to watch, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be good racing, to be honest with you, short track racing, especially in the open. You've got several guys that I'm looking out for. I think you got, of course, Josh Berry. I think he's got the best car. He should have the best car in the open. I think he's definitely got a watch in the open. Ty Gibbs also, in a Gibbs car. They'll have the best two cars, but some other guys I'm looking at, I want to shout out Corey LaJoie. I think he ran some modifieds and got a good background, and I think he'll be competitive there. And my last one I want to look out for is Ryan Preece. Modified background, ran super good at the Clash, there at the beginning of the year. Led some laps before he had a issue with his car that took him out. But those guys are all guys I'm looking at for the Open. I think they break it down into segments, but those are my 4 guys to watch. And I think it would be awesome for any of those guys to get in. And then the fan vote, my prediction is if Noah Gragson doesn't get voted in or win in on speed, I think he will win the fan vote and get into the main event there at 8 o'clock at North Wilkesboro. I'm not going to give a team to beat in general this week because we're going to the All-Star race. Every team there is going to be good and have their best stuff trying to win that $1 million. And, to get into the All-Star race, you have to have won a race this year or last year. So, these guys are top in the NASCAR series. And so I'm not going to pick a team to beat, but I will pick a winner. And my winner this week is going to be Willie B. I think he repeats his win from Darlington last week and follows it up with a win at North Wilkesboro. Really good short track racer, preferably Martinsville. Seems like he's been really good. He wasn't that good this year, but just in general, and I think he will win the All-Star race. So that's my prediction. Hopefully we can go 2 for 3. We should be 2 for 2 already if Ross wouldn't have took out Larson. Want to throw that out there. But my pick for the All-Star main event is William Byron with Hendrick Motorsports. Now for my question of the week segment. I had a listener send me this question, so I want to say thank you for that. And, you all keep sending them in. And this was an interesting one. I had to think on this one for a while. But it was, I see that you've met a lot of drivers. And who is the nicest one out of all of them that you've met? And I will say, I think I'm going to go with Christopher Bell. He's always both times that I've met him, he's been really nice and offered to, sign stuff. And I want to give another shout out to Denny, of course. He's been really nice both times I've met him. Once, me and my son that I had on the podcast last week went to meet him in Bristol for his own separate meet and greet, and I will say that's the best way to meet drivers. You get several minutes one-on-one with them. You can ask them whatever you want, take pictures with them. That's the way to go. I have fun, meeting them in the infield and stuff and on their way to driver intros. That's awesome. You can get pictures with them. They're really nice, and they sign what they can, but they're rushed at the same time because they got to be to driver intros and stuff. But if you ever see your favorite driver hosting a meet and greet, I would say go. That's the best thing you can do. I've never had a bad interaction with a driver. I'll give you a couple examples of the ones I've met. Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman, Corey LaJoy, Martin Truex, Chase Elliott was even really nice. So I've never had a bad interaction with a driver. So if you want to go to a NASCAR race and try to get autographs, I definitely encourage that. It's really fun, and no matter how old you are, in my opinion, I'm a kid at heart, so it's fun to go and really fun to meet your favorite drivers and get them to sign stuff. So I just want to say thank you all once again for listening. I hope you enjoy this episode, and hopefully we keep going, and hope you all enjoy the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you. Thank you for listening to JD's NASCAR and Sport Podcast.